Hey, today we are going through the last authority for human design of our human design series, and we are talking about the Lunar Authority today. The only type that can have this authority is blah, 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 reflectors. And we love to say reflectors are really unique. There's only like 1% of them in the world, and I think that makes them pretty special. Now, the Lunar Authority for reflectors is the way in which they will make decisions. Now, nearly all the other authorities, except for the environmental projectors, they all have what we call inner authorities, whereas a reflector and their lunar authority is what we would almost call an outer authority. It's not usually an authority that comes from within the body. And so reflectors, when they're making decisions, especially major life decisions, we're talking about moving places, getting married, ending relationships, looking at different kinds of careers, anything along those kinds of lines. We're not talking about like, oh, shall I have an orange or shall I have an apple as a snack? It's not super major for most people. But yeah, when we're talking about major decisions for reflectors, it's really important that they take their time. And the way in which the Lunar Authority works is that it's a 28-day to 29-day moon cycle. And so when the opportunity comes up to make a decision about something, it's then going, okay, what gate is the moon in today? All right. And then following the moon through all of the 64 gates until you get right back to where you had started, and engaging then with the decision-making process. You can also check in how the outcome is for you through all of those days. You know, maybe you're curious and you've got a really good trusted person or people with you that you can go through the decision-making process with every day and tracking how you're changing in your decision with that. You can. For some people, it's they want to skip a whole lot of that and then wait till it's gone through its full cycle. So yeah, and often they're very affected by things like the moon phases as well. Full moons, new moons. It can get quite intricate and quite detailed with the reflector's authority of the Lunar Authority. And when they're going through this process with a person, they have to speak out about what they're experiencing, about what it is they need to make a decision on. It may not necessarily make logical sense, but they will hear their answers as they're speaking. And it's a little similar to the environmental projectors authority in that way. Hence why like reflectors, environmental projectors can sometimes be not grouped as the same thing, but they can really kind of understand what it's like, the decision-making process that they have to go through. And they'll often, seek guidance from each other. They'll feel a level of certain comfort as well. Now, I would like to remind you that we do need to be conscientious of these reflectors in our lives, or, if you're a reflector too, you may have to educate others around you that you're not here to be necessarily like, a mirror for everyone. You are your own person in and of itself as well. So hence why when people meet reflectors, they're like, oh, I thought they were a generator, or oh, I thought they were a manifestor. And these are like what they are. The person saying that, it's because they are the generator or they are the manifestor. And so, we have to get a little bit sort of curious outside of the self to then uncover that there's actually a reflector that we are sitting with and engaging with. So how to work with the Lunar Authority. So if you are a reflector, having to go through the Lunar Authority process is giving yourself time, give yourself permission to be able to make these decisions, giving yourself at least that 28 days, tracking those moon phases. Is it full? Is it like, waxing and waning? All of those sorts of things. Make sure that you're reflecting and observing as well. Avoiding making big decisions quickly, which really just goes back to giving yourself the time and space to make the decisions and aligning with your environment. So this is the other thing, as well as the environmental projectors, is to ensure that you're in the right environment when you're going through this decision-making process. And also trying to engage with the right environments, even if you're not directly in the decision-making process right at that moment, but surrounding yourself with the right environment while you're going through like a 28-day cycle of this. Because when you're not in the right environment, then you're going to be pulled into making decisions that are based on someone else's biases, someone else's subjectivities, someone else's preferences. And yes, we are all here to work as a collective, but we all have our own unique way of showing up in the world, and we all have our own unique variations of gifts and how we are also to do life. So, if you don't feel like you've got very good trusted people around you, or you haven't got a really good friend group that is engaging in the lifestyle that you desire to step into, then you're going to have to make big shifts and changes with that. And also reaching out to other reflectors, other environmental projectors that could assist you. Maybe they don't know you personally, but maybe they can take you through a guiding process. I'm sure you'll find many people online that can help you with that as well. And how can reflectors help each other? Well, how often does a reflector meet another reflector? I don't know. It's probably a pretty small percent, but it could also be, attracting what it is that you are and all of that kind of jazz as well. So yeah, making sure, you're creating safe spaces for each other to reflect, making sure there's a reciprocity. Today you need some help, maybe tomorrow someone else needs some help. So sharing that load of guidance and also receiving, sharing kind of like lunar insights that you might be getting, talking about like, oh yeah, the moon is really affecting me this way at the moment, and I'm doing these sorts of practices to assist myself moving through it. Being patient and not judgmental with yourself and with others, and communicating from a place of understanding, being supportive, being in a grounded environment, and just holding each other in your processes. So yeah, I can't say I've met a lot of reflectors, but when I have, they seem to have been quite lovely people. Or I've also heard other people talk about reflectors in a way that's very interesting, because they can also be quite triggering for some people in how they reflect back to that person certain aspects that maybe they are quite uncomfortable with themselves. So it's really, yeah, I can't say I've had any personal interactions with a reflector in that way, but I do hear stories from other people who have been like, oh, that person's a reflector and they get on my nerves and blah, 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 blah. And I listen, and sometimes it does become clear that there's a lesson or a reflection to be sat with as well. Yeah, the Lunar Authority, probably the one that usually takes the longest to work through when making a decision. And if you're privileged enough to not have to make drastic decisions on a daily basis, great. I'm also well aware that some of us live in a reasonably privileged way in which we're not having to make decisions about war, death, and life on a regular basis. So, if you've been given a certain pack of cards, then play them as well as you can. That's what I often like to say. got any questions about the Lunar Authority, welcome to leave that in the comment section below. We're going to go through another different phase of human design coming up soon, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next chapter of human design.